Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck, the People's King of the Dragon Kingdom. Part 1. The Birth of a Modern Monarch, Early Life, and Royal Heritage. On a crisp winter morning, 21 February, 1980, in the bustling city of Kathmandu, Nepal, a child was born who would grow to symbolize the unity, transformation, and hopes of an ancient Himalayan kingdom. This child, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck, was no ordinary boy. He was the crown prince of Bhutan, destined to become the fifth Druk Gyalpo, or Dragon King, of one of the most secluded and mystically revered monarchies in the world. His birth was not just an event for his family, but a momentous occasion for Bhutanese society. Deeply steeped in Buddhist tradition and the values of service, humility, and wisdom, Khesar, as he would come to be fondly known by his people, was born into the Wangchuck dynasty, a royal family that had led Bhutan through a century of stability, cultural preservation, and slow but deliberate modernization. He was the eldest son of King Jigme Khesar Wangchuck, the fourth king of Bhutan, and a visionary leader who had introduced the world to the concept of gross national happiness, an alternative to GDP that emphasized spiritual and emotional well-being as the pillars of a successful society. His mother, Queen Ashi Tshering Yangdon Wangchuck, was the king's third wife and one of the four queen mothers, all sisters, who held prominent roles in Bhutanese life and upheld the cultural and spiritual fabric of the royal household. From the very beginning, Jigme Khesar's upbringing was steeped in the rituals, responsibilities, and reverence of royalty. Though born in Kathmandu, his early years were surrounded by the deep tranquility of Bhutan's mountain valleys, ancient dzongs, fortresses, and monastic institutions. He grew up with a strong sense of identity, carrying the weight of a noble heritage, but also a sincere awareness of the responsibilities that lay ahead. His family's commitment to service, humility, and devotion to the nation deeply shaped his character. As the firstborn son, he inherited not only a lineage, but also a future throne, and the expectations that came with it. Yet the young prince was not alone in the royal palace. He shared his childhood with his younger, full siblings, Princess Ashi Dechin Yangdon Wangchuck and Prince Galchab Jigme Dorji Wangchuck, as well as several half-brothers and half-sisters from the king's other consorts. Despite being raised in the royal court, Khesar's upbringing emphasized a strong sense of compassion, equality, and closeness to ordinary Bhutanese people, something that would come to define his reign in later years. Even during his earliest years, it was clear that Khesar was not just being prepared to rule, but to lead with empathy and modern sensibility. His father, King Jigme Khesar Wangchuck, took a progressive approach to royal education. He believed that a future king must be both deeply rooted in Bhutanese tradition and open to the currents of the changing world. Thus, Khesar's early education began in the national schools of Bhutan, notably at Thimphu Higher Secondary School, where he studied alongside students from diverse backgrounds and learned the values of perseverance, cultural identity, and communal responsibility. From there, his educational path would extend far beyond Bhutan's mountains. His father, determined that his son be a truly global citizen and a monarch who could represent Bhutan on the international stage, sent him to the United States to continue his secondary education. There, the young prince attended two prestigious preparatory schools, Phillips Academy in Andover and Cushing Academy in Ashburnham, Massachusetts. These schools, known for their rigorous academics and diverse student bodies, exposed Khesar to new ideas, cultures, and philosophies. For a young man from a landlocked Himalayan kingdom, this was a transformative experience. While many royals might have been daunted by such a leap across continents and cultures, Khesar embraced it. His time in the U.S. sharpened his intellect, broadened his perspectives, and gave him an understanding of the complexities and interconnectedness of the modern world. He was known by his peers as quiet, thoughtful, and deeply respectful traits that echoed his Bhutanese roots. But he also displayed a deep curiosity, especially in the areas of diplomacy, governance, and social welfare. His academic journey then continued to Wheaton College in Massachusetts, where he pursued broader studies that complemented his natural interest in leadership and international relations. Determined to further refine his understanding of global diplomacy, he went on to attend Magdalen College at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom. There, he completed the Diplomatic Studies program, immersing himself in the philosophies and practices of modern governance, negotiation, and international law. Though he was far from home, Khesar never lost touch with his cultural heritage. In every academic setting, he carried with him the dignity of his ancestry and the responsibilities that would one day fall upon his shoulders. His peers and professors noted his calm demeanor, humility, and deep sense of duty qualities that would serve him well in the years to come. By the time he returned to Bhutan, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck was no longer just a prince in waiting. He was a young leader, wise beyond his years, well-versed in the traditions of his homeland and the mechanisms of global politics. The foundations had been laid for a reign that would honor the past while boldly stepping into the future. Part 2. Crown Prince Khesar, preparing to lead a kingdom. As Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck matured into adulthood, the responsibilities of his royal lineage began to take more visible shape. His years of academic immersion in Bhutan, the United States, and the United Kingdom had molded him into a remarkably well-rounded young man, imbued with a deep reverence for his culture and equipped with a global outlook. Upon his return to Bhutan, he did not retreat into the comfort of palace life. Instead, he stepped into a demanding public role, determined to serve his people and learn the intricacies of leadership firsthand. In the early 2000s, Khesar became a familiar figure throughout the country, not as a distant royal, but as a presence felt on dusty village roads, in remote schools, highland settlements, and monasteries nestled in the Himalayan valleys. Known fondly by the people as Dasho Khesar, a title denoting noble status, the crown prince accompanied his father, King Jigme Singye Wangchuck, on countless tours across the kingdom. These journeys were far more than ceremonial visits. They were acts of connection. In each village, Khesar would walk among the people, listening to their concerns, sharing in their joys and hardships, and observing the social fabric of Bhutan with earnest eyes. This period of apprenticeship under his father was critical. King Jigme Singye Wangchuck was a revered monarch, known for his progressive policies and spiritual wisdom. But he also understood that true leadership was not learned in the throne room, but among the people. Under his guidance, Crown Prince Khesar was trained not just in the mechanics of governance, but in the art of compassion, humility, and the Buddhist ideal of enlightened leadership. As Crown Prince, Khesar was also entrusted with representing Bhutan on the international stage. Despite being a small, landlocked country nestled between giants like India and China, Bhutan had gained increasing recognition for its unique philosophy of governance. Khesar's diplomatic poise and cultural grounding made him a compelling figure to global leaders. One of his earliest and most memorable appearances came on 8 May 2002, when he addressed the 27th United Nations General Assembly. It was a defining moment for the young prince. In his first speech to the international community, he chose not to focus on grand geopolitics or national interests, but on the plight and future of the world's children. His address emphasized global cooperation to protect vulnerable populations, showing a heartfelt concern that would come to characterize his reign. Dressed in traditional Bhutanese attire, standing among diplomats and world leaders, Khesar's presence was a vivid statement that Bhutan was a voice of conscience on the global stage. That same year, On 25 June 2002, in recognition of his maturity and growing role in public life, the Crown Prince was awarded the Red Scarf by his father. In Bhutanese society, the conferring of the Red Scarf is a symbolic and prestigious honor. It denotes trust, seniority, and official status within the state hierarchy. For Khesar, it was both a recognition of his past efforts and a mandate to assume greater responsibilities in the shaping of Bhutan's future. These were not just ceremonial roles. Khesar's day-to-day involvement in national affairs steadily grew. He took particular interest in education, youth development, and diplomacy areas he believed would shape the country's trajectory in an increasingly interconnected world. His speeches, often delivered with calm, sincerity, and clarity, resonated with Bhutanese youth and elders alike. He had an ability to communicate across generations rooted in tradition, but always looking forward. One of the key milestones in his preparation for kingship came on 31 October 2004, when he was formally installed as the 16th Trongsa Penlop at Trongsa Dzong. This title, historically rooted in Bhutan's political evolution, carries immense significance. Since the 17th century, the role of the Trongsa Penlop, literally, the governor of Trongsa, has symbolized succession to the Bhutanese throne. The institution was established by Druk Gyalpo, the founder of Bhutan as a unified state, and each subsequent king had served as Trongsa Penlop before ascending the throne. The investiture was thus not only a formal declaration of Khesar's status as heir, but a reaffirmation of Bhutan's time-honored traditions. The ceremony, steeped in symbolism and ritual, took place at Trongsa Dzong, a majestic fortress perched on a ridge overlooking the Mangdechu River. Surrounded by monks, state officials, and citizens from all corners of Bhutan, Crown Prince Khesar received the sacred symbols of his station: ceremonial scarves, blessings from the monastic order, and the prayers of the people. The atmosphere was a fusion of reverence and joy, marking the moment when the kingdom acknowledged its next king. But the investiture was more than a rite of passage. It marked a turning point in Bhutan's history. The kingdom was preparing for an unprecedented political transformation, the transition to a constitutional monarchy and a democratic form of governance. King Jigme Khesar Wangchuck, always one step ahead of his time, was orchestrating the slow and thoughtful transfer of power not only from himself to his son, but from the monarchy to the people. Crown Prince Khesar would be at the heart of this transition, tasked with shepherding the Bhutanese people into a new era while safeguarding the harmony and identity of their ancient land. Even as his duties multiplied, Khesar remained grounded. He often turned down lavish protocols and chose to travel light, meeting people on foot, sharing tea with villagers, and observing the rhythms of everyday life. He often expressed that Bhutan's greatest strength lay in its people, their resilience, their sense of community, and their spiritual depth. His charisma was not rooted in grandeur, but in authenticity. By the end of 2005, Crown Prince Khesar had become not only a symbol of continuity, but a beacon of hope. The people saw in him a leader who could bridge the old and the new, tradition and progress, kingship and democracy. They admired his quiet strength, his modesty, and his unwavering devotion to Bhutan. The stage was now set for the next chapter of his life, an unexpected but profound turn that would elevate him to the highest seat in the land, the throne of the Druk Gyalpo. Part 3. The Peaceful Transfer of Power. Ascension to the Throne. The year 2005 marked a pivotal juncture in Bhutanese history, one that would soon transform the political and emotional landscape of the Himalayan kingdom. After 3 decades of wise and transformative rule, King Jigme Khesar Wangchuck, the 4th Druk Gyalpo, began preparing the nation for a seismic change: his abdication. It was an act that stunned many and deeply moved the Bhutanese people. Unlike monarchs in most countries who rule until death, the fourth king made the selfless decision to voluntarily pass the mantle of leadership to his son, Crown Prince Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck. This announcement was not merely a change in figurehead, it was an expression of the king's long-held vision that true leadership is not about personal power, but about service, renewal, and empowering future generations. In December 2005, he publicly declared his intention to abdicate in favor of the crown prince, originally planning the transition to be complete by 2008. However, recognizing his son's readiness and the importance of establishing continuity ahead of the kingdom's transition to democracy, the timetable was quietly accelerated. On 9 December 2006, in a moment marked by humility and reverence, the formal abdication took place. The royal edict, issued by the fourth king, was both an official transfer of power and a spiritual passage. In that single act, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck, at just 26 years old, became the fifth Druk Gyalpo Dragon King of Bhutan. The transition was exceptional in its serenity. There were no court intrigues, no political maneuverings, no unrest. It was a moment defined by peace, devotion, and trust. The people of Bhutan, who had long watched the crown prince grow into his role with grace and empathy, welcomed the news with a mix of bittersweet gratitude and heartfelt hope. Their beloved monarch was stepping down, but his Sangye's mirror in both demeanor and values was stepping up. Though he was now officially king, Khesar chose to rule with patience and deliberation. He did not rush into the formal coronation ceremony. Instead, he spent the following 2 years consolidating his role, meeting communities, and gradually assuming full responsibilities. He wanted his people to see not just the crown but the commitment behind it. His ascension was not a spectacle, it was a shared journey of trust, humility, and purpose. Then came the date that would mark a century of Bhutanese monarchy and the beginning of a new era. 6 November 2008. The long-anticipated coronation of Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck was held in Punakha, the ancient capital and spiritual heartland of Bhutan. Punakha Dzong, the majestic fortress temple nestled between two rivers, was chosen for its profound symbolism. It was the site where the first king of Bhutan had been crowned in 1907, and it was here that the fifth king would inherit the mantle of his ancestors. The coronation ceremony was a breathtaking blend of sacred ritual, tradition, and national pride. Rooted in Vajrayana Buddhist traditions, it was a spiritual initiation as much as a political affirmation. Monks in crimson robes chanted ancient prayers, ceremonial dancers performed timeless rites, and the air carried the scent of juniper and incense. The most sacred symbols of kingship, the raven crown, the 5-colored scarves, and the blessings of the guardian deities were bestowed upon Khesar, who stood before his people not as a ruler demanding loyalty, but as a servant king, devoted to their well-being. Only a select group of foreign dignitaries were invited, in keeping with Bhutan's preference for intimate and culturally authentic ceremony. Among the distinguished guests was the President of India at the time, Pratibha Patil, whose presence signified the deep-rooted friendship between Bhutan and its giant southern neighbor. International observers were moved by the profound sense of peace and unity that permeated the event, an occasion marked not by extravagance, but by spiritual solemnity and national cohesion. Celebrations spilled beyond the walls of the Dzong. Across the kingdom, from the capital city of Thimphu to the most remote hamlets in the eastern mountains, the Bhutanese people expressed their joy through dance, song, and prayer. Festive banners adorned buildings, traffic circles bloomed with freshly planted flowers, and villagers painted signs of goodwill and royal blessings. The streets pulsed with a quiet, heartfelt energy. This was more than the crowning of a monarch. It was a renewal of Bhutanese identity and purpose. To welcome their new king, the people offered the symbolic gifts of 5 silk scarves, white for peace, yellow for spiritual power, red for authority, green for compassion, and blue for wisdom. These colors, drawn from Buddhist philosophy and Bhutanese tradition, reflected the aspirations they placed upon their monarch and the virtues they believed he embodied. From that day forward, Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck reigned not just with authority, but with a profound sense of duty. He became the living bridge between the past and future, between the throne and the people. In a world where many monarchies struggled to remain relevant, Bhutan's king emerged as a model of thoughtful, adaptive, and compassionate leadership. Even before his official reign had begun, the 5th Druk Gyalpo had already shown signs of a unique vision. But now, with the crown firmly placed upon his head and the prayers of an entire nation upon his shoulders, his journey as king had truly begun. What lay ahead was no simple task. Guiding a deeply spiritual and traditional country through the delicate process of democratization, modernization, and global engagement, without ever losing sight of what made Bhutan, Bhutan. Part 4. A Royal Union, Marriage, Queen Jetsun Pema, and the Growth of the Royal Family. As King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck settled into the sacred responsibilities of kingship, a question lingered in the minds of many Bhutanese. Who would share the throne beside him? The monarchy had long been a symbol of unity and tradition in Bhutan, and the identity of the future queen was more than a matter of ceremony. It was a deeply symbolic role, carrying immense spiritual and cultural significance. The king, admired for his humility and intelligence, had become one of the most beloved figures in the country, and the public waited patiently and respectfully for news of a royal consort. The moment finally arrived on 20 May 2011, as King Jigme Khesar opened a new session of Bhutan's parliament. He made a quiet but monumental announcement. With calm confidence and the simplicity that had come to define his style, he informed the assembled members of his engagement to a young Bhutanese woman named Jetsun Pema. The announcement was met with joyous applause and warm approval across the nation. The king described her with affection and admiration, noting her deep compassion, humility, and the natural grace with which she carried herself. Jetsun Pema, born on 4 June 1990 in Thimphu, the capital city, came from a noble family with close ties to Bhutan's aristocracy. Her father, Druk Gyalpo, served in the aviation sector, while her mother, Sonam Chuki, was a member of the respected Bumthang Pangti lineage. Despite her noble background, Jetsun Pema's life was marked by modesty and service. She studied at prestigious institutions in India and the United Kingdom, where she excelled in international relations and the arts. Those who knew her described her as gentle, articulate, and deeply thoughtful, possessing both the quiet dignity expected of royalty and the warmth that could put anyone at ease. On 13 October 2011, the royal wedding took place in Punakadzong, a historic location that had served as the coronation site for kings and the spiritual heart of Bhutanese Buddhism for centuries. As early morning mist rose from the riverbanks and prayer flags fluttered in the wind, the sacred ceremonies began. Monks, clad in deep crimson robes, chanted ancient mantras as incense wafted through the stone corridors of the dzong. The entire ceremony was steeped in religious symbolism, conducted with the blessings of the guardian deities, and invoking the spiritual protection of the nation's divine forces. The wedding was not merely a royal event, it was a national celebration. It was the largest media event in Bhutan's history, capturing the attention of not only Bhutanese citizens but also foreign admirers who had grown increasingly captivated by the tiny kingdom's charm and the royal couple's elegance. News outlets across Asia and beyond reported on the festivities, and social media buzzed with admiration for Bhutan's youthful and radiant king and queen. While some monarchies around the world had become ceremonial or controversial, Bhutan's royal family stood out for its integrity, relevance, and genuine connection with the people. During the wedding, King Khesar received from the most sacred Makan temple the revered phoenix crown of the Druk Gyalpo, symbolic crown of the dragon queen, and gently placed it upon Jetson, Pima's head. In that act, she was formally proclaimed Queen Consort of Bhutan, the Druk Gyalpo. The moment, solemn and serene, carried the weight of tradition, devotion, and destiny. Jetson Pema, radiant in traditional kira and intricate brocade, bowed with humility and grace. From that day, she would walk beside the king, not only as his partner in life, but as a symbol of compassion, strength, and harmony for the Bhutanese people. Following the wedding, the newly crowned king and queen embarked on a royal tour across Bhutan, visiting towns, temples, schools, and communities. Everywhere they went, they were received with love and celebration. Villagers danced and sang, children presented flowers, and monks offered prayers. The royal couple's deep affection for each other was evident to all. They were not only sovereigns, but a young, devoted couple, united in purpose and vision. Their love and partnership soon bore fruit in the form of a growing family. On 5 February 2016, the people of Bhutan rejoiced as the royal couple announced the birth of their first Childa son, born at Linkana Palace in Thimphu. The baby prince, Jigme Namgyel Wangchuck, was born into a moment of collective national happiness. Known affectionately as the Gyalzi, meaning crown prince, he represented the continuity of the royal line and the enduring legacy of service that the monarchy embodied. His birth was marked by nationwide celebrations, prayers, and the planting of thousands of trees in his honor. Each tree, a living symbol of life, hope, and harmony with nature. 4 years later, the joy of the royal household grew with the birth of a second son. On 19 March 2020, the king and queen welcomed their second child, also born at Linkana Palace. His name, Jigme Khesar Wangchuck, was announced on 30 June 2020. The arrival of the second Gyalpo added to the happiness of the royal family, and once again the nation celebrated with heartfelt reverence and blessings. Then, on 9 September 2023, King Jigme Khesar shared yet another joyous announcement with his people. The queen had given birth to their third child and only daughter. This birth, too, took place at Linkana Palace and marked a beautiful milestone in the family's journey. 3 months later, on 9 December 2023, the royal couple revealed the name of their daughter, Sonam Yangdon Wangchuck. The name Sonam, meaning merit or blessing, echoed the values of wisdom and compassion, while Yangdon evoked happiness and prosperity. For the Bhutanese people, her birth was more than the addition of another royal member. It was a sign of the monarchy's vitality, a promise of future generations committed to the nation's well-being. Together, King Jigme Khesar and Queen Jetson Pema have modeled not just royal elegance, but a profound partnership rooted in shared purpose. Their marriage has come to symbolize the best of Bhutanese values, humility, unity, and love. As Bhutan strides forward into the 21st century, this royal family stands as both a stabilizing force and a living embodiment of the kingdom's spiritual and cultural soul. Part 5. A monarch for the people, guiding Bhutan's journey to democracy. When King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck ascended the throne in 2006, he inherited not only the sacred title of Druk Gyalpo but also a momentous challenge. Bhutan, For centuries, an absolute monarchy steeped in Buddhist tradition and ruled with benevolence by its kings was on the cusp of an extraordinary political transformation. This transformation, long envisioned and carefully orchestrated by his father, King Jigme Khesar Wangchuck, would transition the country into a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary democracy, a rare and courageous endeavor in the modern world. For most Bhutanese citizens, the very idea of democracy was unfamiliar. The monarchy had been the stable axis of their society, ensuring peace, continuity, and spiritual guidance. There had been no widespread protests or political upheavals calling for change. In fact, the majority of Bhutanese people revered their monarch so deeply that they were reluctant to see power shared or relinquished. Yet, the fourth king, a visionary deeply committed to Bhutan's long-term resilience, insisted that the security of the nation could only be guaranteed by empowering the people to govern themselves. And so, it fell upon the young fifth king to carry this torch forward and make that vision a reality. King Khesar embraced this responsibility with humility, conviction, and an unwavering sense of duty. Rather than imposing the changes from the throne, he chose to walk alongside the people, guiding them with patience and compassion through one of the most significant transformations in Bhutan's history. His approach was not to lecture, but to listen to enter villages, towns, and schools and engage with citizens from all walks of life in heartfelt discussions about the future of the kingdom. One of his first major initiatives as monarch was to oversee the final parliamentary sessions that would lay the legislative groundwork for democracy. These sessions were vital, involving debates on electoral laws, land reform, administrative restructuring, and the passage of the draft constitution of Bhutan. King Khesar sat in these meetings not as a distant observer, but as an active moral compass. He encouraged open dialogue, emphasized unity, and reminded the legislators that Bhutan's strength lay in the moral fiber of its leaders and the spiritual resilience of its people. The king traveled extensively, sometimes to the most remote corners of the country, carrying with him copies of the draft constitution. He spoke directly to citizens, farmers, students, monks, elders explaining their new rights and responsibilities under a democratic system. He emphasized that this transition was not merely political but deeply spiritual and cultural. For democracy to thrive in Bhutan, it had to be grounded in Bhutanese values: compassion, integrity, and collective well-being. He told the people that democracy was not a gift from the throne, but a sacred duty for all Bhutanese citizens, a way for them to shape their own destinies while remaining anchored in their identity. His message was clear. In a small and vulnerable country like Bhutan, democracy must be lived not just through ballots and parliaments, but through active citizenship, ethical leadership, and constant vigilance against corruption and complacency. On 18 July 2008, Bhutan officially adopted its new constitution. It was a historic day that enshrined the rights of individuals, the separation of powers, and the supremacy of the people. The constitution preserved the institution of monarchy, but as a symbolic and unifying force under the new democratic structure. The king, now a constitutional monarch, retained important ceremonial roles and moral authority, but political power would rest in the elected National Assembly and National Council. Yet even after the formal transition, King Khesar remained deeply involved in ensuring the sustainability and integrity of democracy. He continued to tour the country, often speaking to the youth, those who would soon inherit the responsibility of upholding democratic values. In his addresses, he stressed the importance of education, ethical business practices, and a strong civil service. He challenged young Bhutanese to aim high, to serve with excellence, and to recognize that in a globalized world, their small country must work even harder to thrive. His words were never hollow. The king led by example. He lived modestly, avoided extravagance, and constantly prioritized the needs of ordinary citizens. He became known for stopping his motorcade to speak with villagers along the roadside, for personally reading letters of concern sent to his palace, and for offering comfort during natural disasters. This deeply personal leadership style reinforced the spiritual bond between the monarch and the people, even as the democratic institutions matured. One of the most powerful examples of the king's moral leadership came in February 2021, when he signed into law the official decriminalization of same-sex relationships in Bhutan. The repeal of discriminatory laws had been passed by both houses of parliament in 2020, but it was the king's signature that gave the change its final legal force. In doing so, he sent a strong and compassionate message to the world that Bhutan, though rooted in tradition, would not tolerate injustice or exclusion. LGBTQ communities in Bhutan and around the globe hailed the decision as a profound milestone. Organizations like Queer Voices of Bhutan and the Human Dignity Trust expressed deep gratitude for the king's courage and progressive stance. Through all these actions, King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck demonstrated a profound truth, that monarchy and democracy are not mutually exclusive, but can coexist in harmony when guided by wisdom and humility. Under his reign, Bhutan did not lose its soul in the pursuit of modern governance. Instead, it found a way to express its deepest values through new institutions and civic freedoms. The world watched with admiration as Bhutan achieved what many considered impossible, peaceful, voluntary, and spiritual transition to democracy, led not by revolution, but by royal example. And at the center of this transformation stood a young king who believed, above all, in the power of his people. Part 6. Bhutan on the World Stage. Diplomacy and International Relations under King Khesar. Though Bhutan has long been known for its cultural preservation, monastic fortresses, and measured approach to modernization under King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck's reign, it began to engage more confidently with the international community on its own terms, and with a clear sense of identity. With careful diplomacy and quiet confidence, the king helped Bhutan step onto the world stage, not as a global power, but as a moral compassionate nation that values harmony, environmental sustainability, and spiritual well-being above material excess. From the early days of his kingship, King Khesar understood that Bhutan's foreign policy would have to evolve in tandem with its domestic transformation. As Bhutan democratized, it would also need to build diplomatic bridges, strengthen regional ties, and represent its values in an increasingly interconnected world. However, he remained committed to ensuring that global engagement would never come at the expense of Bhutanese culture, sovereignty, or happiness. One of the most significant diplomatic milestones under his leadership came in February 2007, when Bhutan signed a new treaty of friendship with India. This treaty replaced the one originally signed in 1949, a time when Bhutan's global interactions were minimal and India had only recently achieved independence. While the earlier treaty had guided decades of warm relations between the two neighbors, the updated agreement reflected the changing realities of both nations and the maturing of Bhutan's international role. The revised treaty removed language that had implied Bhutan's foreign affairs would be guided by India, thus affirming Bhutan's sovereignty in all areas of diplomacy. Instead, it emphasized cooperation based on mutual respect, equality, and shared interests. This subtle yet significant shift reflected Bhutan's growing self-confidence and its commitment to participating as a full and respected member of the international community. The relationship with India, however, remained one of profound friendship and strategic partnership. The two nations continued to collaborate closely on trade, hydropower development, security, and cultural exchange. King Khesar's approach to diplomacy was always rooted in the same values he espoused at home: compassion, clarity, and responsibility. He believed that Bhutan's influence would not be measured by military power or economic might, but by its ability to inspire the world with its unique philosophy of governance centered on gross national happiness, environmental stewardship, and spiritual well-being. As such, Bhutan's foreign policy remained deliberately modest in scale but rich in symbolism and sincerity. In 2008, as Bhutan adopted its democratic constitution, the king supported government initiatives to prepare the country for new forms of international interaction. These included professionalizing the civil service, modernizing the education system, and investing in diplomatic institutions that would uphold Bhutan's values abroad. A new generation of Bhutanese diplomats and leaders emerged under the king's patronage, men and women, trained both at home and in international universities, capable of articulating Bhutan's identity to the world. King Khesar himself became a symbol of Bhutanese diplomacy. Wherever he traveled, he carried not just the regalia of royalty, but the wisdom of a nation grounded in compassion and humility. He was received with respect and admiration in foreign capitals, not for the grandeur of his title, but for the quiet dignity and moral clarity he projected. In 2011, the king and queen made a deeply symbolic state visit to Japan, just months after the devastating earthquake and tsunami had shaken the nation. The royal couple became the first official state guests to visit Japan following the disaster, and their presence was a source of comfort and solidarity. Dressed in traditional Bhutanese attire, they paid their respects to the victims, met with survivors, and expressed their heartfelt condolences. The Japanese public was deeply moved by the sincerity of their gestures and the grace of their words. In the aftermath of such national trauma, Bhutan's royal couple reminded Japan and the world of the power of empathy in diplomacy. The king and queen also attended numerous other high-level global events, always representing Bhutan with a rare blend of tradition and progress. In 2013, King Khesar was invited as the chief guest at India's 64th Republic Day celebrations, a rare honor that reflected the exceptional bond between the two nations. The Bhutanese king's presence underscored mutual trust, and his speech to Indian dignitaries highlighted shared values and aspirations. Over the years, King Khesar and Queen Jetsun Pema became icons of quiet elegance and spiritual integrity in international forums. In 2015, they attended the funeral of Singapore's founding Prime Minister, Lee Kuan Yew, paying tribute to a leader whose disciplined governance resonated with Bhutan's own development path. Their appearance was respectful and humble, yet powerful in its symbolism, the young monarchs from a small Himalayan kingdom standing among the world's most seasoned leaders, not as equals in size or wealth, but in sincerity and moral voice. In October 2017, they returned to Thailand to honor the memory of King Bhumibol Adulyadej, a monarch who had profoundly influenced King Khesar's own thinking. The Bhutanese king held great respect for Bhumibol's lifelong commitment to rural development and moral governance, and the ties between the Bhutanese and Thai royal families were deeply personal and spiritual. Their presence at the funeral was a testament to this enduring friendship. In 2019, King Khesar and Queen Jetsun Pema were present for the enthronement of Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako of Japan, and again in 2022, they attended the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, followed by their presence at the coronation of King Charles III in 2023. In each instance, their participation reflected Bhutan's continued diplomatic maturity and the king's place in the global community of monarchs, not as a relic of the past, but as a relevant, respected figure for the 21st century. Yet, perhaps the most remarkable aspect of King Khesar's diplomacy is its authenticity. There is no pretense in his engagements, no performance of power, He embodies a quiet strength that stems from rootedness in Bhutanese values and Buddhist teachings. His presence abroad is always measured, thoughtful, and aligned with his vision of Bhutan, a country that seeks peace over prominence and depth over display. Under his reign, Bhutan has managed to retain its soul even while opening itself to the world. It stands not as a silent observer on the global stage, but as a humble teacher offering lessons in happiness, sustainability, and ethical leadership that the world is increasingly eager to learn. Part 7. Guardian of the People. Land Reform, Kidu, and Compassionate Leadership. While King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck has earned international respect for his diplomatic grace and stewardship of Bhutan's democracy, his truest legacy may be found not in the halls of power or on the global stage, but in the fields of rural villages, in the stories of the sick, the poor, and the forgotten. For at the heart of his kingship lies a singular, unwavering principle to serve his people as a Dharma king, a sovereign whose sacred duty is to care for the welfare of all citizens, especially the most vulnerable. This sacred obligation is most clearly expressed through the continuation and expansion of Kidu, a centuries-old Bhutanese tradition that derives its name from the idea of offering benefit or relief. In the Bhutanese worldview, the king is not a distant ruler but a compassionate father figure to the nation, accessible, approachable, and duty-bound to protect and uplift his subjects. Under King Khesar's reign, this philosophy has been both preserved and modernized to meet the needs of the 20th century. From the earliest days of his rule, King Khesar made Kidu a cornerstone of his personal mission. He did not delegate this responsibility to administrators alone. Instead, he personally traveled the length and breadth of the kingdom, including to some of the most remote, treacherous, and isolated corners of Bhutan. Whether by foot, horseback, or helicopter, he arrived not as a monarch demanding allegiance, but as a humble listener, ready to hear the appeals of his people directly. In Bhutan, a citizen in need can seek Kidu in several ways: by applying to the office of the royal chamberlain, through district Kidu officers, or most notably, by appealing directly to the king himself. On his journeys, it is common to see the monarch stopping his convoy for an old woman by the roadside or sitting down under a tree to hear a farmer's plea. He reads every letter, listens to every voice. No one is too insignificant to deserve the king's attention. The scope of Kidu under King Khesar's reign has expanded significantly. He has implemented special Kidu programs to support the elderly, students, orphans, people with disabilities, single mothers, and families affected by natural disasters. Students from impoverished backgrounds receive scholarships and stipends, ensuring that even in the most remote villages, education is not a luxury but a birthright. Elderly citizens who live alone or in hardship are granted care and security. Families who have lost homes to fire, floods, or earthquakes are provided with temporary shelter, resources, and emotional support. In 2009, the king launched one of his most ambitious initiatives, the National Cadastral Reserve, a large-scale land reform project aimed at resolving long-standing issues of land ownership and excess land registration, a problem that had affected nearly every Bhutanese household for generations. Many farmers had unclear or disputed land records, leading to insecurity and legal obstacles. The project sought to bring clarity, justice, and peace of mind. This wasn't just an administrative task. It was a moral campaign. Land, in Bhutanese society, is not just a commodity, it is a connection to one's ancestors, a spiritual inheritance, and a foundation for livelihood. Recognizing this, King Khesar made it his mission to regularize and redistribute land in a way that honored tradition while ensuring fairness. He granted state land to landless farmers, often traveling personally to oversee these handovers and to listen to the stories behind each request. A variation of this reform took shape in the Rehabilitation Project, which focused on relocating people from extremely remote and uninhabitable areas to more sustainable settlements where they could access education, healthcare, and markets. One of the pilot projects was launched in Kinadang in Pemagotchel in 2011 and officially inaugurated by the king's brother, Prince Gyalchab Jigme Wangchuck, in 2014. These newly resettled communities were provided with homes, farmland, and essential services, allowing families to rebuild their lives with dignity and hope. Under King Khesar's leadership, Kidu has also responded swiftly and effectively to natural disasters. In 2009 and again in 2011, Bhutan experienced devastating earthquakes and floods. The king didn't wait for reports from his minister. She traveled immediately to the affected zones, comforting survivors, directing relief efforts, and personally inspecting the damage. His presence wasn't symbolic, it was transformative. He inspired courage, resilience, and unity in times of despair. In one especially poignant instance, when the historic Wangdufo Dzong was engulfed by flames on 24 June 2012, King Khesar once again demonstrated his devotion. As Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, he mobilized soldiers, desoups, volunteer peacekeepers, and local officials to save whatever could be salvaged. Though the structure was largely destroyed, his swift action ensured that invaluable religious relics and sacred texts were rescued. He also granted new 100 million from the armed forces to fund its reconstruction, a gesture not just of preservation, but of spiritual restoration. In all these efforts, King Khesar has never drawn attention to himself. His acts of compassion are not driven by politics or publicity. They come from a place of deep-seated belief that the king's foremost responsibility is to see his people not as subjects, but as family. In interviews, Bhutanese villagers speak of him with tears in their eyes, not because he is powerful, but because he is present. His Kidu policies extend even to the prison system. In 2014, after the parliament amended Bhutan's strict Tobacco Control Act, which had previously criminalized the possession of even small quantities of tobacco, King Khesar issued a royal pardon to 45 prisoners. These individuals, most of whom had no prior criminal record, had been sentenced under laws that no longer reflected the nation's evolving values. His pardon was not just an act of leniency, but a declaration that justice must be compassionate and context-driven. Through Kidu, land reform, and compassionate intervention, King Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck has redefined the role of a monarch. He is not simply a figurehead or constitutional symbol, he is a living bridge between tradition and progress, between the throne and the everyday struggles of Bhutanese life. His leadership proves that even in a rapidly changing world, a ruler can still be a healer, a listener, and a protector. In a time when many societies are plagued by cynicism toward authority, Bhutan's king stands as a reminder of what leadership can and should be, rooted in service, wrapped in empathy, and guided by a love for the people that transcends politics. Part 8. Empowering the Future. Druk Gyalpo, and the Rise of Bhutan's Youth. One of the defining characteristics of King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck's reign has been his deep and abiding faith in the potential of Bhutan's youth. While many leaders around the world speak of the next generation as the future, King Khesar has taken direct, visionary steps to empower, train, and uplift the young people of his kingdom, instilling in them the values of discipline, service, innovation, and civic responsibility. His two signature initiatives, the Druk Training Program and the Gyalpo National Service Stand, as powerful testaments to this mission. The story of Tshering, meaning guardians of peace, began in 2011, shortly after the king's marriage and the early years of his reign. It was born not from a government mandate, but from a request by Bhutanese youth themselves. Young citizens had approached the king, expressing a desire to serve their country in meaningful ways, particularly during times of need. They wanted to be more than bystanders. They wanted to contribute to nation building, to acquire skills, and to develop a sense of shared responsibility. Moved by their sincerity and spirit, King Khesar personally designed and launched the Tshering training program. It was modeled after military-style service, but was fundamentally about civic empowerment and volunteerism. The training, conducted under the guidance of the Royal Bhutan Army, combined physical fitness, emergency preparedness, leadership skills, and nationhood education. Graduates of the program became known as Desoups, instantly recognizable by their bright orange uniforms and their unwavering dedication to helping others. But Tshering was never just about uniforms and drills. It was about instilling a code of honor. The Tshering Honor Code, followed by all trainees and alumni, proclaims a simple but powerful principle: service to the nation before self. It emphasizes humility, courage, readiness, and unity as spiritual, as well as civic commitment to Bhutan. Over time, the program expanded dramatically. Thousands of young Bhutanese men and women from all walks of life, including school leavers, professionals, and even members of the royal family, joined Tshering. The impact was profound. Desoups began to play critical roles in disaster response, community events, COVID-19 pandemic support, and infrastructure projects. Whether constructing homes for the poor, delivering food during lockdowns, or aiding in medical emergencies, these citizen volunteers became one of Bhutan's greatest assets. The king often visits Tshering training grounds, not as a commander giving orders, but as an elder brother encouraging growth. He eats with the volunteers, listens to their ideas, and continually revises the program to keep it relevant. What began as a modest training initiative soon evolved into a nationwide movement, a shining example of engaged youth shaping their country's destiny. But King Khesar's vision for youth empowerment did not stop there. On 17 December 2019, during the speech marking Bhutan's 112th National Day, the king made a groundbreaking announcement. Beginning in 2024, every 18-year-old citizen would participate in Gyalsuang, a one-year national service program. The term Gyalsuang translates to service for the nation, and it represents one of the most ambitious social programs in Bhutan's modern history. The concept was born out of the king's concern for the long-term security and unity of the nation. As Bhutan slowly modernized, many challenges began to surface, arising: youth, unemployment, rural-urban migration, disconnection from cultural roots, and global pressures that threatened Bhutan's unique way of life. The king understood that to protect the country's values and sovereignty, its young people needed not only opportunities, but a structured environment for growth, training, and national pride. The Gyalsuang National Service is designed to be both rigorous and holistic. It will begin with 4 months of military-style training, emphasizing discipline, physical fitness, and teamwork. But it doesn't stop there. The remaining 8 months will be dedicated to academic and practical training, including areas such as agriculture, technology, health sciences, coding, entrepreneurship, and national security awareness. The aim is to create well-rounded, capable, and ethical citizens who can contribute meaningfully to Bhutan's progress. The king has emphasized that Gyalsuang is not about militarization, it is about nation-building. It is about ensuring that every Bhutanese youth, regardless of social or economic background, receives the tools and confidence to thrive, serve, and lead. In preparation for the program's 2024 launch, the government has been constructing Gyalsuang academies across the country's state-of-the-art campuses that blend modern classrooms with training grounds and residential facilities. The first batch of students will begin their service in September 2024, and from the second cohort onward, the full year-long training will commence. King Khesar has expressed his personal involvement in every aspect of Gyalsuang, from the design of the curriculum to the physical inspection of training facilities. In his public addresses, he has spoken movingly of his belief in Bhutan's youth. He does not see them as problems to be solved, but as the greatest strength the country possesses. Together, Dsuang and Gyalsuang form the pillars of a new Bhutanese ethos: service over status, community over individualism, and unity over division. These initiatives are helping to forge a generation that is as comfortable with traditional values as it is with technological innovation, a generation that is ready to face the 21st century not with fear, but with confidence, purpose, and humility. Through these programs, King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck has redefined kingship for the modern age. He is not only a guardian of the past, but a cultivator of the future, a leader who believes that the destiny of his kingdom lies in the hearts, hands, and hopes of its youth. Part 9. The People's King. Legacy, Popularity, and Global Reverence. As Bhutan marches confidently into the 21st century, embracing democracy, technological advancement, and global integration, it does so under the quiet but steady guidance of a monarch whose leadership transcends borders and time. King Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck, the fifth Druk Gyalpo, has come to embody not just the spirit of Bhutanese kingship, but the ideals of a modern, compassionate, and visionary ruler whose influence is felt far beyond the mountain kingdom he calls home. Within Bhutan, he is widely known as the People's King. This title is not one earned through marketing or ceremony. It is a reflection of how he has lived and led. From the dusty footpaths of rural hamlets to the polished halls of parliament, from village homes to highland monasteries, King Khesar has shown that leadership is service and that love for the people is the highest virtue a monarch can embody. Citizens describe him with a mix of affection and reverence. Many tell stories of the king stopping his convoy to personally greet children or elders. Some recount how, in moments of personal grief or hardship, he arrived at their doors not to issue orders, but to offer comfort. In a world increasingly marked by distance between rulers and the ruled, King Khesar's leadership has brought the throne closer to the people than ever before. His deep personal involvement in education, healthcare, and youth development has helped inspire a new generation of Bhutanese citizens' youth who are not only literate, but globally aware, ethically grounded, and culturally proud. His emphasis on quality over quantity, compassion over competition, and sustainability over exploitation has shaped every sector of Bhutanese governance. From the protection of forests to the promotion of cultural identity, from equitable land distribution to inclusive policy making, the king's touch is everywhere, and always in service of his people's happiness and dignity. This personal devotion has not gone unnoticed beyond Bhutan's borders. Around the world, King Khesar is admired as a model monarchan, increasingly rare figure who combines traditional authority with modern humility, spiritual grounding with global savvy. Wherever he travels, whether attending international ceremonies or disaster memorials, he is welcomed not just as a head of state, but as a moral voice in an era often plagued by political cynicism and institutional mistrust. After his first official visit to Thailand in 2006, he captured the admiration of Thai people, who found in him echoes of their own revered King Bhumibol Adulyadej. The relationship between the Bhutanese and Thai monarchies deepened in the years that followed, And King Khesar was warmly welcomed at both King Bhumibol's funeral in 2017 and at several state functions thereafter. His gentle demeanor, soft-spoken sincerity, and strong commitment to traditional values made him a beloved figure throughout Southeast Asia. In Japan, following the royal couple's 2011 state visit after the earthquake and tsunami, the Bhutanese king and queen became symbols of spiritual solidarity. Their decision to be the first foreign state guests after the national tragedy was not lost on the Japanese people, who saw their compassion as genuine and deeply moving. Their presence at the enthronement of Emperor Naruhito and Empress Misako in 2019 further reaffirmed Bhutan's special place among Asia's most respected monarchies. King Khesar and Queen Jetsun Pema have also represented Bhutan at key global events in the West. In 2022, they attended the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II, paying tribute to the late British monarch with grace and solemnity. Their attendance at the coronation of King Charles III in 2023 symbolized not just diplomatic ties, but the enduring relevance of constitutional monarchies that serve with conscience and wisdom. Yet for all the admiration he receives abroad, King Khesar remains firmly rooted in the Bhutanese soil, the songs of schoolchildren, the prayers of monks, the stories of elders, and the hopes of young entrepreneurs. He is seen not only as a king, but as a brother, a mentor, a guardian, and at times, a silent companion in the country's collective journey. Perhaps his greatest legacy is not in what he has built, but in what he has protected: the delicate harmony between modernity and tradition, between progress and preservation. In a world driven by economic growth at all costs, Bhutan, under his reign, has held fast to gross national happiness, proving that a nation can pursue development while honoring its spiritual, cultural, and environmental heritage. His enduring popularity stems from the fact that he does not place himself above his people but walks beside them, listening, understanding, and quietly guiding. His humility is not performative. It is a way of life. He speaks in soft tones, avoids self-aggrandizement, and lives modestly, yet the impact of his words and deeds resonates deeply. As Bhutan looks to the future with rising literacy rates, stable governance, and a growing youth population, the guiding presence of King Khesar offers reassurance. His children, particularly Crown Prince Jigme Namgyel Wangchuck, represent continuity, but his legacy, already profound, is not dependent on succession alone. It lives in the institutions he helped shape, the trust he earned, and the spirit of nationhood he strengthened. In the years to come, scholars will write about King Khesar's diplomacy, his policies, and his social programs. But in the hearts of his people, his story is already inscribed not as a ruler of power, but as a king of the heart. In his own words, delivered to the Bhutanese youth in one of his most stirring speeches, "The future of our nation lies in your hands. You must carry it forward with intelligence, strength, compassion, and courage. And I will always be with you, not just as your king, but as your father, your brother, and your servant." Thus continues the story of Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuck, a monarch born from tradition, crowned by destiny, and beloved by a nation he has chosen to serve with every breath.